You watched every match. You felt every goal. You believed every result. And almost none of it was what it appeared to be. The 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar was the most watched sporting event in human history. Over 5 billion people tuned in. 5 billion! That is nearly 2/3 of the planet, gathered around screens, convinced they were witnessing the purest form of competition on Earth. Sport in its most honest form. 22 players, one ball, and nothing else mattering. But what if the most important decisions about that tournament were made years before a single ball was kicked? What if the host, the sponsors, the referees, the broadcasters, and the governing body that runs the sport were all connected by something that had nothing to do with soccer? What if the game you love was being used as a cover for something else entirely? This is not a conspiracy theory. Every fact in this video is documented, verified, and in many cases admitted by the people involved. The conspiracy, if there is one, is hiding in plain sight. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It starts with a vote. On December 2nd, 2010, FIFA's executive committee gathered in Zurich to decide which country would host the 2022 World Cup. The candidates were Australia, Japan, South Korea, the United States, and Qatar. By any conventional measure, Qatar should not have won. The country is roughly the size of Connecticut. It had no existing stadiums capable of hosting a World Cup. Temperatures in June and July, when the tournament traditionally takes place, regularly exceed 50 degrees Celsius, and the country had never qualified for a World Cup in its history, and yet Qatar won by 14 votes to 8. American journalist Michael Isikoff spent years investigating that vote. His reporting, along with findings from the FBI, the Swiss Attorney General, and FIFA's own internal investigation, led by former U.S. Attorney Michael Garcia, revealed a pattern that would become impossible to ignore. Money had moved, lots of it, in directions that coincided precisely with votes. The Garcia report itself, all 430 pages of it, was commissioned by FIFA to investigate corruption in the bidding process. FIFA then refused to publish it. They released a summary instead, written by a German judge named Hans-Joachim Eckert, which cleared Qatar of wrongdoing. Garcia resigned in protest. He said the summary was, and these are his words, materially incomplete and in some respects erroneous. A governing body investigated itself, suppressed the results, and declared itself innocent. But the money trail did not disappear just because the report did. Mohammed bin Hammam, a Qatari football official and former FIFA presidential candidate, was found by FIFA's own ethics committee to have made payments totaling over $5 million to football officials across the Caribbean and the African Football Confederation in the period surrounding the vote. He was banned from football for life, twice, and yet the vote that his payments appeared to have influenced was never overturned. Think about what that means. The man found guilty of bribing officials to influence the vote was punished. The vote itself was allowed to stand. Now go deeper, because the corruption is not just about who paid whom, it is about what the tournament cost and who paid the price. Qatar spent an estimated $300 billion preparing for the World Cup. That number is not a typo. $300 billion. For context, Russia's 2018 World Cup cost approximately $14 billion. Brazil's 2014 tournament cost $15 billion. Qatar spent 20 times more than either of them, on a country with a population of under 3 million people, on stadiums that, in several cases, were partially dismantled after the tournament ended. Where did that money go? And more importantly, who built the things that money paid for? Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International both published extensive investigations into the conditions faced by migrant workers in Qatar during the construction period. Workers from Nepal, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and the Philippines arrived under what is known as the kafala system, a sponsorship arrangement that ties a worker's legal status entirely to their employer. Under this system, a worker cannot change jobs or leave the country without their employer's permission. Human Rights Watch described it as creating conditions analogous to forced labor. The Guardian published an analysis in 2021 estimating that over 6,500 migrant workers had died in Qatar since the country was awarded the World Cup. Qatar disputed the figure. FIFA said the matter was for Qatar's government to address. The tournament proceeded. 6,500 people, building stadiums for a tournament that awarded its winning nation $50 million in prize money. And the players walked out into those stadiums. And the cameras rolled. And 5 billion people watched. This is the part that the psychology researchers find most disturbing. Not the corruption itself, though that is disturbing enough, but the mechanism by which ordinary people, intelligent people, people who would be appalled by what you have just read, can watch a tournament and feel nothing but joy. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman, who spent his career studying how humans process information, identified what he called the focusing illusion. The idea is simple. Whatever you are paying attention to feels more important than everything you are not paying attention to. When your attention is on the ball, on the goal, on the celebration, on the player crying after scoring, it is not on the workers who built the stadium. It cannot be on both at once. The spectacle is designed, consciously or not, to consume your focus entirely. FIFA understood this, or at least behaved as if it did. The 2022 World Cup was the first to expand to 48 teams. Beginning from 2026, it was the first to be held in November and December, which disrupted every major football league on Earth but protected Qatar from its own climate. It was broadcast on more platforms, in more languages, and with more production value than any previous tournament. The show was bigger than it had ever been, and the bigger the show, the less room there is in your attention for anything happening off-screen. Investigative journalist David Kahn, who has covered FIFA corruption for The Guardian for over 2 decades, made an observation that stayed with me. He said that FIFA does not just sell a product. It sells a feeling. The feeling of belonging to something universal, something pure, something that transcends politics and money and power. And that feeling is so powerful, so deeply wired into human identity, that people will defend the institution that provides it, even when confronted with evidence of that institution's wrongdoing. He is right, and the evidence bears it out. In 2015, the United States Department of Justice indicted 14 FIFA officials on charges of racketeering, wire fraud, and money laundering. The indictments describe decades of systemic corruption involving television rights, sponsorship deals, and hosting bids worth hundreds of millions of dollars. 7 officials were arrested in Zurich at a hotel where they had gathered for a FIFA Congress. Swiss authorities raided FIFA's headquarters the same day. Sepp Blatter, FIFA's president of 17 years, resigned 4 days after being re-elected. He was subsequently banned from football for 6 years. His successor, Gianni Infantino, was himself placed under criminal investigation by Swiss authorities in 2022 over a series of secret meetings with the Swiss Attorney General, who had been overseeing the FIFA corruption probe. The man put in charge of cleaning up FIFA was being investigated for interfering with the investigation of FIFA. And yet, the World Cup happened. 40 million tickets were requested. Sponsors including Coca-Cola, Adidas, and Qatar Airways paid billions for association with the tournament. Broadcast rights sold for record sums. And the football was, genuinely, extraordinary.